my grandmother worked for Eleanor Roosevelt. She was her cook. So I think it's in our DNA. You know, we liked, me and my sisters, and even my brother. And my brother married a woman who was an amazing cook. And we just like food. We're foodies. These are kind of simple. These wontons I'm making for you guys. So I'm going to show you how I do my apple wontons, really. These are kind of a dessert thing, definitely a dessert thing. I pre-made some, but I want to show you how I did it because it's very easy, except it's a little time consuming when you're stuffing these guys here.
So you're making two different kinds of
Yes,
wontons,
I'm making the apple first. All right. So I'm melting a half a stick of butter. I cut up like 3 apples, but I'm gonna probably cut up another one. And Granny Smiths are the best to use because they've got that tartness. I put a little bit of lemon in water to coat them so they wouldn't turn all brown, because the oxidation process, if they were to sit out here, they'd be brown by now. So that's why they're not brown and ugly looking. So I've got this in here. I'm gonna put my apples in the butter. I would say a teaspoon of cinnamon in here, the apple, and I'm gonna sprinkle it just all over somewhat. It's about probably not even a teaspoon.
I like cinnamon.
Yes, and it depends on how much you like cinnamon, right? All right, so I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. So we'll stir this up a little bit. I'm doing this first, that's the other reason. I'm doing this first, the pork wontons I'm doing next, but I'm doing this first because these have to cool before I stuff the wontons and deep fry them. And then you're gonna watch some magic happen when we add some flour. So I'm gonna start with a tablespoon of flour in here. It's gonna thicken it up, like caramelize this. So when we put it into the wontons, it's gonna be thicker and kind of caramelized and delicious. We're gonna sprinkle a heaping tablespoon, I would say, of flour. In here. And there's a lot of water in the apples, and these are juicy. So it's like apple pie filling, you know, it's delicious. There's also a little bit of lemon in here because I put the apples in the lemon juice. So it kind of even helps with the tartness. I use peanut oil, but you could use canola, vegetable. Peanut oil has a higher heat, smoke rate. I can cook it higher and hotter without it burning. This is what the wontons look like. You can find them in your grocery store. I put a little bit of vanilla in my apple stuff. So about I would say 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I'm gonna stir it up now. Normally I do it while I'm cooking, but you're gonna cook again in the wontons. So I use an egg and a little bit of water to use for sealing our wontons. You could just use egg whites if you wanted to, but something to make it seal well, you know, it helps. And I'll show you how I put it in. It's really not hard, but when you do it the authentic way, it is a little bit more beautiful. I mean, the Asian cuisine is the most beautiful food I've ever seen. Just the artistic way they do everything, and even to their wontons and the way they create their sushi, and the Japanese, I mean, it's just so creative and beautiful. You hear that now? It's starting to really do it. Okay. Okay, we are almost there, folks. Okay, guess I'll we'll let them cool a little bit. Just give it a minute to drain, and then I'll put them in the sugar, okay? 2 teaspoons of rice vinegar, soy sauce, a pinch of sugar, and I'm going to use a little bit of Japanese chili oil that I made, which is kind of spicy, but I like it. Yes. And I'm going to use a little bit of oyster sauce in there, and a little bit of water, and some cilantro and some chives. So I got the rice vinegar, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, so I'm tripling that. So I got dark soy sauce. This is not easy to find, so I get it on Amazon. So dark soy sauce, I'm going to use 3 of the dark and 3 of the light, which is just regular soy sauce. 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, because I'm tripling the recipe. Sesame oil is very strong, so you want to not overdo it too much, but it adds a nice nuttiness to it. You know what I mean? So, a tablespoon of oyster sauce, a little bit of water, like 2 tablespoons. A pinch of sugar, so I'm going to say a teaspoon. And I made this chili oil with garlic and chilies and all kinds of stuff in there. There's a whole YouTube video on how to make different chilies. This is one of the ones that I like. This is very, 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 very spicy. So I'm only going to put a little bit in here. I mean a dash. All right. Tell you what, it's hard. So a little bit of, I used chives, but it calls for scallions, but I like the milder chives, and they're so small and skinny, and cilantro in the spice, the dipping sauce. So we'll cut a little bit of that up.
We don't put sugar on these?
No, we put dipping sauce on them if you want dipping sauce. So for the filling, okay, all you gotta do, get a pound of pork. You're gonna put a teaspoon of white peppercorns, which I don't have peppercorns, just white pepper is fine. So a teaspoon of that. White pepper. You could use regular pepper too. 4 cloves of garlic, which is about, I would say, I'm gonna say a tablespoon. So I use the easy garlic and the easy ginger because we are here, and it just makes it easier. So they do have chopped garlic and chopped ginger, so heaping of garlic. 2 tablespoons of chopped ginger, a half a teaspoon of salt, and then it normally calls for like 3 to 5 cups of chopped cabbage, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use broccoli slaw because it's got some cabbage in it, it's got broccoli, it's got carrots in it, and I like to use this for my wonton. So I'm just going to give it a rough chop. So it's got red cabbage, carrots, broccoli slaw, and that's really good for anything like egg rolls or wontons. 1.5 teaspoons of soy sauce goes in here. So this is a teaspoon of sesame oil, a teaspoon of sugar, which I put honey in a lot of times, but I don't have it with me, so you could put sugar in. Tablespoon of cornstarch. It's amazing how in Japanese cooking they use cornstarch quite a lot. And now you're just gonna whip this up, guys, and stir it up. And I just will use my glove and use my hands. So here's our filling, y'all. Just buy the wrappers and fill them up and cook them up in your oil. And